Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at some crazy battles in the Open Master League, featuring a 9-1 run with level 51 SKELEDIRGE. This video was originally going to be a feature of Megahorn on Xerneas, the goal being to save switch Xerneas. If the opponent sends in a Mewtwo, I can deal massive super effective damage with Megahorn. The bad news is Megahorn did nothing on Xerneas, but the good news is, with a little bit of luck and some careful gameplay, SKELEDIRGE was still able to cook its way to a 9-1 run. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out SKELEDIRGE cooking the Open Master League. Hopping to the first match, leading Rayquaza into Mewtwo. This is a losing lead for Rayquaza in the 0 shield, so I am going to have to shield at least once. Now that I've shielded though, I do win the 1 shield and the 2 shield, so this matchup does improve quite a bit. I'm going for the Breaking Swipe. Mewtwo has no reason to shield this, as they don't win the 1s. They're going to make it to the side strike with very low HP, but I decide to switch out, keep my Rayquaza healthy, and send in Xerneas. Debuff Side Strike, not going to do a whole lot. In comes Kyogre, and I'm very happy that I switched out. Kyogre would absolutely crush the SKELEDIRGE in the back. I fire off the Moonblast. That will connect. This would be a really nice time to have close combat, but I'm not running it. I'm running the more expensive Megahorn, and I only make it to 1 move. They have enough for the Blizzard. I will respect it, and my opponent full sends the Blizzard. That's quite nice. I can now commit to the farm down. I leave with a massive amount of energy, but I'm down 2 shields. They have a Dialga in the back, and this is looking very, very difficult. I go for Breaking Swipe number 1, immediately followed by Breaking Swipe number 2. Opponent commits the shield. In comes SKELEDIRGE. I'm going to look to overfarm in case they try and catch as soon as I make the move. I overfarm, go for the Disarming Voice, but my opponent makes the catch. I hit 0 bubbles, trying to do as little damage as possible. My opponent survives with a fraction of HP, and I get a small amount of energy back onto the SKELEDIRGE. I go for the Disarming Voice. Opponent commits the shield. I am not in Iron Head range. They have to go for a Draco Meteor, and after they do, they're going to need to make it to a second move versus Rayquaza. It's a race. Rayquaza versus Dialga, and Rayquaza is able to outpace, making it to the Breaking Swipe, taking down Dialga, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a terrible lead, Rayquaza into Zacian. Absolutely terrible spot to be in. I'm going to throw 1 Dragon Tail and save switch into the Xerneas. If my opponent has a Mewtwo, I'm hoping they decide to send it in here, but they're just going to stay in with the Zacian. Zacian goes for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge does quite a lot of damage, but the important thing for me is that it lowers their defense, and this means Moonblast will nearly one-shot. My opponent is farming up. They're firing off another Wild Charge, and I will commit a shield. Opponent does have the pacing advantage. In this matchup, after they've debuffed themselves, this is when it's really nice to have close combat, as close combat does pace quite a bit faster than the Moonblast, but unfortunately, I do not have it. Opponent firing off another Wild Charge. I think I'm just going to have to go for the Moonblast as soon as I get it. I'm farming up, going for the Moonblast. Opponent switches into Dialga, and they catch the move. At this point, my Rayquaza is basically useless, so I'm just going to send in the Rayquaza. They're not going to make a Draco. They have to go for an Iron Head here. They try and go for the Draco, and they do not get there. I'm very close to a Dragon Ascent. Opponent sends in the Zacian, and they throw just before I make it to the Dragon Ascent. That is quite unfortunate, as Wild Charge will KO. In comes SKELEDIRGE. SKELEDIRGE farming up energy. Opponent is going to go for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge will hit for some pretty solid damage onto the SKELEDIRGE. I'm looking for the farm down. In the back, it's Yveltal. Is this game winnable? I'm firing off the Disarming Voice. That does hit for super effective damage, but oh my goodness, this is a non-stab move from a 3400 CP Pokemon. Disarming Voice number 2 gets them low. I switch into Xerneas. Oh my goodness, the Geomancies add up, forcing them to throw. They have to go for the Dark Pulse. They are not at the back-to-back. SKELEDIRGE gets the farm down and leaves with the Disarming Voice loaded. Is this enough to KO the Zacian? Disarming Voice does get the KO, and that's a good game. We see a terrific lead in the next match, Rayquaza into Kyogre. Opponent is going to stay in, throw 1 fast move, save switch into Solgaleo, and in comes SKELEDIRGE. Solgaleo, a mythical Pokemon, requires a ton of Rare Candy XL to build, and it's getting hard countered by a Crocodile. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. Opponent is going to let that go, and bye-bye Solgaleo. In comes Kyogre. My defense on the SKELEDIRGE has been debuffed by the Psychic Fangs, so these waterfalls are tearing me to shreds. I fire off the Shadow Ball, does a decent amount of damage to Kyogre, and I do not wait the switch clock. That's very important. as now my opponent is still switch locked in. I can fire off a breaking swipe. My opponent is forced to commit a shield. In the back, oh no, it's Metagross. Opponent baited out the fire type with the Solgaleo save switch, and now I'm core broken. I have to stay in with the Rayquaza and hope that with a shield advantage and an energy lead that I can somehow get rid of the Metagross. Metagross goes for the Meteor Mash. I commit the first of my 2 shields, and I'm firing off another breaking swipe. I absolutely cannot Geomancy down, so I'm forced to stay in here as the Rayquaza. I'm gonna double shield. I think my win con is to try and farm down. If I can leave with a move, Rayquaza does win CMP over Kyogre. I get to leave with the move, win CMP, and now I get to apply a permanent debuff. They only have 1 Pokemon left, which means they cannot reset that attack debuff for the remainder of the match. Surf will KO Rayquaza. In comes the Xerneas, and Xerneas will be able to withstand a debuffed Origin Pulse from the Kyogre. Kyogre gonna go for it, but Xerneas withstands the damage and makes it to the Moonblast. Moonblast will secure the knockout onto Kyogre, and we take the win. Moving into the next match, picking up a very nice lead, Rayquaza into Giratina. Opponent save switches into Lugia, and suddenly things get complicated. Xerneas does have a positive matchup into Lugia, but if Lugia can land the Aeroblast, then things can get a bit dicey. I fire off the Moonblast, opponent farms up, they have enough for the Aeroblast, and I will commit the shield. I'm hoping to try and keep Xerneas healthy. I would much rather shield an Aeroblast to start, then instead be stuck shielding Sky Attacks after the Aeroblast has landed. I go for Moonblast number 2, but this will still not KO. I could go for the Mega Horn here on the CMP tie, but I'm still trying to hide that move in case my opponent has a Mewtwo and decides to send it in. Moonblast will secure the KO, but in comes Giratina. They'll outpace me if I don't throw as soon as I get to the move, so I will go for the Moonblast just to ensure massive super effective damage, or more likely, a shield. I'm going to continue to farm up with the Xerneas. Opponent is forced to throw their energy, and on top of that, I'm out of Ominous Wind range. They have to go for a Shadow Ball. I can send in Rayquaza in the back. Is it Xerneas? No, it's Snarl Zacian. Oh, man. And this Crocodile is an absolute wall to energy from the Xerneas, but this is a Zacian, but by a stroke of luck, it's not running Wild Charge. It's running Play Rough and Close Combat. So due to this unique typing on the Skeledirge, this Zacian is walled with its energy. They're firing off another charge move. I'm going to let this through. They go for the Play Rough, and the Play Rough does not KO. The best buddy coming in clutch on the Skeledirge. 1 HP Shadow Ball gets that Zacian low. In comes Rayquaza. I go for the Breaking Swipe. Opponent catches onto Giratina, but honestly, this is fine. My plan here is to save the shield for the energy from the Zacian, and now that they're debuffed, it makes it a lot easier to do so. They go for the Shadow Ball, I'm able to tank that no problem. I get the full farm down, in comes the Zacian, I throw 1 Dragon Tail just to get a little extra bit of energy, and go for the Breaking Swipe. This is double resisted, but the Zacian runs out of HP, and we take the win. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Rayquaza versus Rayquaza, but my opponent has the best buddy boost active, which means they will always win CMP over me. That makes this quite tough, and I can't really switch out because Skeledirge does not do well into Rayquaza. So I'm going to stay in, shield the Breaking Swipe, and return fire with a Breaking Swipe of my own. We trade shields, and it's a simultaneous KO. If they lead Rayquaza, they're probably strong against Xerneas in the back, so instead I'm going to send in Skeledirge. And oh boy, are they strong against Xerneas in the back. In comes Ho-Oh. This is absolutely awful for me. Ho-Oh beats Skeledirge, and it beats Xerneas. I'm in a lot of trouble. This is going to be really rough. My only hope is that they go for a Sacred Fire bait. So I no shield, and they do. That's big, but I immediately get debuffed, and this is not good. This can only be a Brave Bird, so I'm going to expend my final shield here. They're debuffed, they're looking to switch, in comes Zacian, and I'm throwing my debuffed energy here. The reason being is I need to get them into Moonblast range. If I get them into Moonblast range, then they're actually threatened to potentially commit a shield. I go for the Moonblast right away. They have a ton of energy on the Zacian, they don't want to lose it, so they will commit the shield. And now, my win con, believe it or not, is to not throw a move with Xerneas. If I throw a move with Xerneas, my opponent can farm down with the Ho-Oh, make it to the Brave Bird, and win the game. 2 Wild Charges do not KO. I don't throw my energy, and my opponent falls for the bait. They throw their energy. They are now energy dry. I can send in the Skeledirge. They send in Ho-Oh, but switching takes a turn, so I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will secure the knockout onto Ho-Oh. Back in comes Zacian. I make it to the Disarming Voice. Is this enough to KO? Come on, SKELEDIRGE. Disarming Voice leaves them on 1 HP, but they cannot make the move. SKELEDIRGE with 1 HP takes the win, and that's a good game. We've got no time to rest as we see the exact same leads in the next match. Rayquaza versus Rayquaza, but again, my opponent has their Best Buddy boost equipped. I'm working on Best Budding my Rayquaza, it's just not done yet, and it's really awkward because it means that I lose basically every CMP tie in a Rayquaza mirror. Breaking Swipe, shielded on both sides, again, it will be a simultaneous KO, and I'm making the same calculation as last game. They're probably strong against Xerneas in the back, so I'm going to send in SKELEDIRGE. In comes SKELEDIRGE, and it's a Solgaleo! Let's go! Solgaleo is going to be firing off the Psychic Fangs, looking to debuff my defense. What do they have in the back? Oh no, they have Heatran, and if you remember, I'm running a terrible moveset on the Xerneas. If I was running close combat, this would be an easy win, but I have Mega Horn. My energy is absolutely walled, but the good news is my opponent doesn't know that, and they commit a shield on the Heatran. Heatran goes for the Magma Storm. I continue to farm up, and I'm just going to let this through. Even if it KOs, that's fine. But Magma Storm barely does not. Xerneas makes the 1 HP Mega Horn. My opponent's now going to realize that I have nothing that can hit the Heatran. I'm farming up to 100 energy and going for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, it's definitely going to hurt. Opponent, no shields left. They just have to take the damage. In comes the Solgaleo, and they're just not able to make it to a move. This Shadow Ball is super effective damage, getting rid of the Solgaleo. In comes the Heatran. This is tough. Are they going to bait? Do they nuke? They bait. I commit the shield, but I make it to the Shadow Ball. SKELEDIRGE, against all odds, is still able to clutch that win. I mentioned at the start that this was a 9-1 run, and this is going to be the loss. Unfortunately, this very easily could have been a 10-0 run if I played better. As you're going to see, I start off with a great lead. My opponent is staying in, so they're very clearly core broken by Rayquaza. I wait a turn to make sure they don't catch, and I land the Breaking Swipe. They're going to fire off the debuff Shadow Ball, which is perfectly fine, and now I get a farm down. Here, I should pivot out, because my opponent has shown they are weak to Rayquaza in the back, but I make a fatal error. I stay in with Rayquaza, I go for the Breaking Swipe, I pivot into the Xerneas, in comes Groudon, and here, if I had my Rayquaza with some health on it, I would be in a really good spot, but my Rayquaza is basically 1 HP, so now I'm in a lot of trouble. I land the Moonblast, I commit the shield with the Xerneas, but this is going to be extremely tough. I'm firing off the Mega Horn. Again, having the cheaper move of Close Combat would be really nice here, but unfortunately, I'm running Mega Horn, which did absolutely nothing for me in all of my sets. I'm hoping against hope that I can live the Precipice Blades and make it to a move, but I cannot. I get farmed down. Rayquaza gets farmed down as well, and now it's all up to SKELEDIRGE. They don't really have a reason to bait, so I have to shield up the Precipice Blades, and they go for it. I'm looking for a farm down. Opponent now going to send in Dialga, and it all comes down to this. Can a couple Incinerates plus a Shadow Ball KO? Can I somehow salvage this absolute disaster of a game? Come on, SKELEDIRGE. Shadow Ball into the Dialga. Dialga survives on 1 HP. They make the Draco Meteor, and the game is decided by mere inches, and we lose it. Hopping to the final match, we're looking for a bit of redemption, and we get the same lead as last game. Opponent save switches into a Snarl Zacian, and I'm going to respond with the Xerneas. My opponent, by save switching into a Zacian, is a bit of a tell that they're probably running the Xerneas in the back. And if that's the case, I really want switch advantage, because SKELEDIRGE absolutely walls the standard Xerneas moveset. I'm farming up with the Xerneas. Opponent does have enough for another Play Rough, so I will respect it with a shield. They do go for the Play Rough. I'm farming up, and I decide to go for the slightly cheaper Mega Horn. Again, Mega Horn has done absolutely nothing for me during all these battles. Here, it's like, oh good, I get a KO, but it really, again, does not do much for me. I'm going to be met with the Giratina. I'm firing off the Moonblast. This is massive super effective damage. Moonblast is a pretty solid move, so the opponent is going to have to commit a shield. I'm looking to make it to another Moonblast, but my opponent says no. They're going to fire off the Ominous Wind, and I just have to hope that they do not get the boost. In comes Rayquaza, and they did not get the boost. They're going for the Shadow Ball, but I'm saving my shield. I'm expecting that it is going to be the Xerneas, and it is. Hello, Xerneas meets SKELEDIRGE. SKELEDIRGE is an absolute wall to energy from Xerneas. The massive difference in stat product means that this matchup is still kind of close, but SKELEDIRGE is gonna do its best. Firing off the Shadow Ball, that connects onto the Xerneas. I'm making it to the Disarming Voice and putting pressure onto the opponent. Disarming Voice onto the Xerneas will leave it at 1 HP. They make the last second move, and suddenly this is looking dire, as this will put me into a range where I can't make a move versus the Giratina. Giratina gets a farm down, and now this is looking rough. Can my opponent make it to double Ominous Wind? I'm firing off the Breaking Swipe. They will commit the shield, and if they're within 1 Shadow Claw of the move, I lose. I shield the Ominous Wind. Are they there? They are not. And a game that ends up far closer than it ever should have been still will result in another win. All in all, the Megahorn Xerneas experiment was an absolute failure. Megahorn did nothing for me all day, except just make it way harder for the team to win, but against all odds, I feel like SKELEDIRGE put in a ton of work. I was running it just because it's a really fun Pokemon to run, but I felt like it actually held its own, which is very surprising. It goes without saying, SKELEDIRGE is a very, very spicy pick for the Master League. I would not run it for consistent elo gains. It's definitely more of a pick for fun. But again, it just goes to show, with a little bit of luck and some careful gameplay, even a Pokemon as spicy as a Master League SKELEDIRGE can pull together a 9-1 run, and I believe I was able to climb up to the mid-2900s, so we're getting back close towards Legend, and potentially maybe even a leaderboard push in the coming days. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry. Fear the deer. Soon.